Well, welcome again, everyone, to our Unboxing Growth series, How to Act Like a Unicorn. I'm Nicole DeMeo, and I'm joined by my business partner, Janine Moss, today. And we're really excited about this super fun conversation that we're going to lead you through. Just really quickly about Janine and I and our organization, Outfront Solutions. We have this firm, and we are focused on branding, marketing, and strategic business development. So we stand alongside executives and personal branded people, amazing leaders like all of you, to really help you grow and scale your organizations, your personal brands. And also, what's at the center of this image is to find results and purpose. And so when purpose and results are aligned, that's when we see that we're all acting like a unicorn and realizing our goals and objectives and dreams. And I want to invite you to stay in touch with us. And so our website is outfront.solutions, and our LinkedIn profiles are there. And on LinkedIn, that's a really good place to stay in touch with us with Outfront Solutions. We post daily, and we post to the best of our abilities, thoughtful content for all of us to join in community around the topics of, women's advancement and technology and leadership topics like the one we're discussing today. So a little bit about us. Yes, we do have fun in everything we do, always to the best of our abilities. We are unicorn makers. And what I mean by that is we have had the great fortune to help and stand alongside a number of business leaders over time and companies to help them grow to their full unicorn potential. And some of those individuals are people like Steve Jobs, who I personally got to work for 5 years of my life. And the reason why I can say that I was a part of him growing into a unicorn, or his ability to grow into a unicorn, was that when I started working with him, he was at the lowest point of his career. He had been kicked out of Apple, and a lot of the media just really didn't believe in him. And so we worked with him to build up his personal brand and turn him back into that unicorn in the eyes of the public, publics and communities. We've also worked with people like Eric Schmidt and Carly Fiorina, and by way of writing speeches for them and doing positioning and messaging for them, that's contributing to their ability to show up as a unicorn in the world. We've worked with modern day unicorns like Chris Foster, who's head of Omnicom Public Relations Group, Demet Mutlu, the CEO of Trendyol.com, and Rina Onur-Sertoglu, who is the CEO of Spike Games, and we'll tell a few stories about them later. We've also worked and helped build a few unicorns, including Glispa, where I was the CMO of that company, a global ad tech company. We also were very much a part of the unicorn growth of Peak Games, which ended up selling to Zynga for $1.8 billion. And then also we helped with the growth of Real Names, a domain company. And then finally, we have a Decacorn under our belt. So we're going beyond unicorns here today, and helped with the growth of Trendyol.com. So we're unicorn makers, and we also stand alongside unicorns. Janine?
Yep. So I just want to tell you a little bit about why we decided to do this webinar this way. So Nicole and I met in the late 90s in New York City. And I had been promoting New York City tourism for 10 years. I've been in new product development. I was publishing magazines. I was a publisher. I was a journalist. And Nicole comes along towards the end of the 90s. I'm looking at the internet and I'm going, this is what's going to really be happening. And Nicole pops on the scene and she says, Janine, I'm working for this big internet professional services firm called Organic, and I want you to help me open the New York office and open the marketing communications division. So I'm really excited to get my feet in this milieu. And by the way, if you think about the late 90s, it was only 94 where we got our Apple computers on our desks. So this is really early. And Nicole and I had come together with our teams, and we have all these processes that we use in marketing and communications. But by the way, we're inventing digital marketing because it didn't ever occur before that. So with these processes, a lot of them came from Nicole's experience with launching and working with these unicorns in the making. And I had been working with some unicorns back in the day. And so we come together and we're creating all these processes based on this kind of knowledge. Steve Jobs, Carly Fiorina. And so from the 90s until today, Nicole and I have been working together as partners mostly in our lives. We've had a few deviations along the way, but we've always come back. And so we're both each other's longest long-term relationship. Anyway, it was we went on to work for lots of other companies, continue to evolve how we work. And we were sitting around, we're talking about unboxing growth and what do we want to do for some of our, programs. And we realized, what Nicole just told you, we've worked for so many. And I started interviewing Nicole about the observations and how did she know that they were going to be unicorns back before they were ones, and what were some of the early indicators. And that was the impetus for us to come here and talk with you today to share what these observations were and see, is this something that you are interested in and that you can do? And we think that they are. So we want to share some of our tips and suggestions for that with you right now. So the first thing we want to do, Nicole and I, we started Outfront Solutions right before the pandemic really hit, right when it did. And we immediately learned that everybody is changing and everybody's in a different emotional state than they had been earlier. And we started counseling clients about, paying attention to that. So we like to take our own medicine. And so we want to ask you this morning, how are you feeling? What's happening in your life? Would anyone like to share with us, how they're feeling and today?
And go ahead and pop it in the chat too.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling great.
Yay!
I'm feeling awesome. I am so excited by what I see in front of me. I started something almost 4 years ago. I made up my job to become a storytelling coach for executives, and didn't really realize, other than to follow my gut instinct, that this was the path I needed to do, because it was sales, it was marketing, and it was going to finally figure out how to use my acting skills. And it's been amazing. And now I've got an opportunity, as I said in chat, to add more coaches and to train them to be able to do what I'm doing with these people every day and create more powerful, emotionally connected leaders out in the world and across the globe. So I feel awesome, and I'm really excited about the tips that you might have. I did ask a question, though. I don't know if you saw it.
What is a unicorn? We will answer. What is a unicorn? We will get there. Absolutely.
Because you've said it several times. I'm like, what is it? I think I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. A little mystery there.
Yeah. So thank you. That's good to share.
And Raquel, one of the things we've seen is that everybody is in transition these days. Very little, and I think it's always true, but it seems like the rate of transition is so rapid these days that it's something to be aware of and pay attention to and honor, I think. And there's excitement there, but there's a lot of other feelings too, right?
Yeah. All right.
Anybody want to
Let's
share
jump
anything
in.
else?
Yeah. And feel free to pop in the chat. How are you feeling today?
Okay.
All right.
So first we want to start though with a little bit of inspiration, because the unicorn isn't just how awesome it looks, right? It's also, it's really the strength and courage to stand out, right? That makes the unicorn, and owning it. And we're going to talk a lot about that today.
Yeah.
And here's your answer to Melissa's question. So
always causing trouble.
Right? So the unicorns are, they're rare, right? But and it's hard to identify how you're a unicorn, and it's difficult to stick with your unicornness, right?
But we'll have lots of tips along those lines.
Yeah. So let's
and how to define it, how to define what is rare and what is highly valued, right, for you, and how maybe you're defined as a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to highlight the fact that, of course, we know of the term unicorn as it relates to companies, and that's typically a company that is valued at over $1 billion. And those are some of the companies that we listed that we worked with. We have built them to, or been part of their journey in getting them to that valuation state. But also, as it relates to all of us today, what is it that helps to turn someone into a unicorn? And 2 modern day unicorns are on this slide. In the right corner for me anyway is on the cover of Fast Company is Rina Onur Sertoglu. And she was this executive that we met along the way. She was in operations. She was behind the scenes at a company called Peak Games. And she really was a significant part of the leadership team, but very much behind the scenes for her company, and letting, the CEO, a male CEO in this case, kind of be the front person for the organization. Well, Peak Games, with Rina's help, very strongly, did become a unicorn as a company. And they sold for over $1 billion. And Rina came back, and she came back to us literally a year ago, almost today, and it'll be tomorrow, exactly a year that she came back, and she said, listen, I have another company in me that I'd like to start, and I'm going to be the CEO of this one. And so we knew that at that point, we needed to position Rina and the company as a unicorn out of the gate. So what does that mean? That means positioning for that future valuation state, that growth size, right? And that, taking her and the team from being, one of 5 people at Peak Games in a small air conditioning shop in Istanbul, Turkey, to a modern day leader. And what we did is we found record-breaking statistics that she could own. And it wasn't easy to get there, and that's a whole long other story. But what we were able to do is find some statistics that were in support of, her leadership being remarkable, these points of differentiation for her. And we did launch her company Spike Games, and her personal brand. And it's been a really incredible ride. We had 184 media placements, really, really incredible stuff. And it's because we got to the core of how she's truly a unicorn as a leader, and then the traits of the organization that also demonstrated a path to being a unicorn. And then I'll just quickly mention the other leader here is Demet Mutlu. She's the CEO of Trendyol.com, another former client of ours. And we got to work with Demet in the days where she was just starting to want to, launch on the global map. Trendyol.com is a Decacorn. So that's pretty incredible. That's a company built double-digit billions in valuation, and a female leader who dropped out of college and had a giant chip on her shoulder about doing so. She was not confident stepping forward. And so what we did is we took her on a journey, a lot like what we're going to talk about in these slides, to a point of clarity and confidence in the place that she could own in the market, places she could own in the market, places of differentiation and positioning.
And what both of these people have in common is they were not unicorns when they came to us, right? But what we did is we had them think like a unicorn. So that's what we're going to be talking about more in a minute.
Yeah. So there are some common traits in unicorns that we've known and grown, right? And so a number of those are, they were able to see a massive opportunity. So whether it's global or it's, outside of your local sphere, but they were able to see a large opportunity. And we just flagged Peak Games because they were a small Istanbul gaming company, but what was beautiful was that they realized that they were replicating games like that people play in the physical world that had a lot of tradition and were known, like, backgammon and all these different games, and brought them to the digital world. So they saw the global opportunity, right? All unicorns that I've ever experienced have it together operationally. The operational efficiency and excellence is very clear. And so it's wonderful to be innovative, but it's imperative to have a solid operational core to get you to that growth and scaling state. And Trendyol had that in spades. I mean, from the beginning, her teams were buttoned up. She had the right resources and leadership to help guide her through the operations. Unicorns resource funding, whether that's venture funding, whether that's getting grants, wherever funding may be. Most of the unicorns that we know find that funding, right? And that helps to scale their growth and nailing their objectives, right? So they have these clear objectives and they find some funding sources to put a little bit of fuel on the fire in the strategic ways that they need to. The CEO of unicorns and a unicorn usually demonstrates some charisma. They get trained. They do storytelling courses. They do public speaking courses, and they're trained and ready to tell their story in a way that connects. And so they really all have charisma. Unicorns are also able to listen and communicate. And it's really imperative that we're all listening people and listening companies, because ultimately the market decides. And if you are seen as a unicorn in the world, it's because you've had your ear to the ground and you've been listening and you understand what's going on, right? You're tapping into cultural, political, economic, emotionally intelligent cues and trends, right? To make sure that you're truly relevant in the world. So listening is an imperative quality of a unicorn. marketing, unicorns always give marketing a seat at the table. We all need to continually market. And you may think that's self-serving because we come from a marketing background. It's not. It's, unicorns see marketing and the importance of storytelling, positioning, branding, messaging, and they give marketing a seat at the table. And that was the case in Glispa, where I came in as the CMO. And at the very beginning, we raised a lot of money. We raised $70 million, and we went out and it was very clear that we had a go-to-market strategy and a path, and marketing had that seat at the table to demonstrate that. All unicorns are able to tell a strategic story, right? And so they're claiming their space and their records and data points and proof points, and they're creating momentum. So they're putting a stake in the ground around their strategy, and then they're demonstrating momentum against it. So that's
Good.
a lot of the common traits. Yeah.
I want to kind of underscore a couple of things that Nicole said. So, for example, the global opportunity, that is your vision. And it's important to have one if you're going big, right? And the thing about that vision is that it absolutely will guide you. You can't always talk about it, everything having to do with your vision today, like if you're raising funds. You have to show a progression towards your vision, but think big. That's the first important thing. The operationally excellent, you can right now be documenting your processes. I talked about how Nicole and I came together. She had her processes. She'd been working with unicorns. I had mine, and we put them together. And now we think our processes are so much better because we've been able to build on that. I also want to say about the funding is that ultimately you won't be able to bootstrap your way to becoming a unicorn. That's why you're going to have to be ready for funding. And the question is, what type of funding and when, right? Which is something we'll talk about in some next year, I'm sure. I wanted to point out that the listening and communicating is so important because nobody became a unicorn by themselves, right? So you have to be building and listening and pivoting, and that's going to happen. The companies that we've worked with pivoted many times with the times. And if they hadn't paid close attention to where the opportunities were, they wouldn't be unicorns. And for marketing, I just want to underscore this. And again, not because we're marketers, but here's why. We're working with a company right now, for example, that built a tech product, but they didn't think about how am I going to move my customers through this product? They did think about the experience, but there's a way of thinking about how do you attract them? What do you promise them? How do you continue the promises through the process? And for example, at the September 11th Fund, when we created programs and I sat at that table, I would say, hey, how are you ever going to be able to explain this to people? We need something much more simple, or we need different strategies for getting it out there. And so that's why marketing has to be there, planning, designing, and supporting, that process.
Yeah.
And about the strategic story, as Melissa will tell you, you seem to be one of the star participants here today, Melissa, because we're referring to you, but it has to do about supporting your story and supporting the story of your company and supporting why those two things go together, right? In a simple way. So I just want to add.
Can I add to that? Can I add to that though?
Sure.
I love everything that you two are saying today. It's so great. And I just want to double click that you have got to have your story. And you got to tell it like everyone. I'm talking about everyone. Like you've got to be able to tell it so that people are like leaning in and their breath is taken away because you are so compelling. And I love that you are encouraging that with your clients. So very cool. Bravo.
Yeah, absolutely. And more on that in the rest of the presentation too. Sorry.
And I just want to say one other thing that we see a lot with entrepreneurs is that they don't think they need their story in the beginning. They go, okay, I'm going to get my business, I'm going to get it going, and then I'm going to do all my positioning and messaging and stuff, and I'm going to get a logo, so I've got a brand. That's not operational if you want to be a unicorn. First of all, logo isn't a brand. I know you all know that. There's much more to it. What its promises are, you want it to mean to people, and all of that. And the story needs to be in the very beginning. That's when it's hardest to get traction. So don't ignore your story early in this process.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Why you should think of yourself as a unicorn. We've already touched on this. It helps you to think big. Yes, think big. Dare to think big. That's one of the key tenets of how you can think of yourself as a unicorn. Thinking of yourself as a unicorn, it helps you with your focus, right? If you're telling your strategic story, if you're operationally excellent, if you're living by the tenets of how to build your unicornness, it really helps you to focus. What is it that you need to accomplish, right? And as Janine, go ahead.
I just wanted to leap in because Nicole is one of the great manifestors of our time. And so when we build our company and we're working on our vision, Nicole will say, I'm manifesting this. And it causes us to all focus straight ahead on that thing. And I'll be damned if we don't always get whatever she's manifesting. So it really works. Okay,
Yeah.
go on, Nicole.
Thank you. It's visualizing the outcome, right? And it's always big. It's bigger than us. And I think one of the things that's not on this slide is it has to feel scary. Actually, it might be on another one. Anyway, yes, it feels scary, but think big. Focus, 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 manifest. It inspires how you carry yourself around, right? If you're thinking of yourself as a unicorn, you will carry yourself differently, and therefore different things come to you, right? So that's really an imperative. It'll help you focus on scalability, because going for it and going big and thinking big helps you to think about what are those points that I need to focus on for growth and scalability. When you think of yourself as a unicorn, you absolutely need to differentiate, right? Unicorns are rare. And so it's imperative that you have a clear understanding of knowing yourself, right? And then also communicating your differentiation. It's really one of the most important things that you can do. And then, seeking communities of people and other leaders to stand alongside who help drive your success. So being a part of Leadership Global and the C-Suite Network, really important to stand alongside and be in the company of other leaders, right? And some can be very, inspirational and aspirational, but seek them out, be in their company, join communities and organizations where there are other unicorns as you aspire to be one. So one place that we thought we would ask each of you, and please feel free to put it in the chat, but we'd love to hear from you and/or speak up. We love that too. But please name one of your unicorn superpowers. We'd love to hear that. We'd love to hear what's one of your unicorn superpowers. I'll just offer one out there. One of my unicorn superpowers is that I see unicorns. So I see the ability of leaders and organizations to become a unicorn. So that's one of my unicorn superpowers.
This
And
is Raquel from the US. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go,
Yeah.
Raquel. I'd rather hear you.
Hi, this is Raquel, US Virgin Islands. One of my unicorn superpowers is my ability to bring talents together to build a team, utilize various talents because I think we're all different, unique. And that's one of the things I do well.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Critical unicorn superpower right there.
Yeah. I see
really
in the chat, Peggy says one of her unicorn superpowers is resilience. Ooh, that's deep and juicy. Resilience has just been so imperative, especially in these last years. And it's a beautiful unicorn trait. Dana says persistence. Persistence is a phenomenal unicorn trait. Absolutely. That gets us through a lot, right? And the ability to fall in love with what we're doing every day, and carry that persistence.
And it takes a long time to be a unicorn. So being persistent and overcoming those obstacles are like critical unicorn superpowers, you know?
Yeah.
Mine is, I'm a questioner. I'm really good at questioning. I don't ever have to think of what am I going to ask somebody. There's 1,000 things I want to ask people all the time. But I'm also, what goes with that is I can really hear what the truth of what they're saying is. So I can, out of everything, I can zero in. So that's my superpower. And I use it a lot in branding, messaging, positioning, and strategy.
It's an incredible superpower, Janine. Yeah, she really gets to the core of people and businesses like no one else I've ever met in the world, and therefore is, so phenomenal at helping to create unicorns, right? Because you have to dig in and ask the questions and understand and be able to pull out that differentiation. So yeah, it's a beautiful
I'm not afraid
trait.
of sacred cows. You have to be willing to kill your sacred cows, and question even your decisions that you make. And sometimes our clients get a little prickly when I go after their sacred cows. But ultimately, they're always really happy that we did. And one time, I'm just going to say one time, the office I was working for, heading up tourism promotion in New York City, one day I got this huge bouquet of flowers from my colleagues. And the reason they sent it to me is because I killed a meeting. They said, well, we're going to have this annual meeting. And I went, why? And they killed the meeting. So I'm just saying, never be afraid to question even the most normal things that have been happening for 100 years.
I think of first of all, what you guys are talking about is really cool. So I think for me, I'm a visionary thought leader who architects global platforms before we ever start anything. So my current project is a VR. It's first to market with VR with an FDA approved product for endurance sport. So it's first to market. We own the space. It will be global literally day one. We're out sourcing funding of $100 million to start. So to your point, I can't put that on my credit card, right? And so I think the real opportunity here is I'm a consultant, I'm a coach, you're one of how many. And the other question I think for everybody is not everybody wants to scale a business, right? So what you're sharing is, how do I position myself to be unique, to stand out, to have something that no one else has, even though there may be a lot of competition for it? And I think the storytelling part helps to get you there. And until I felt like when I coach people, until I get to go, okay, that's something I can see that's different. Don't give up. Keep doing the inward journey.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's really a great point, Dan. And it's so important to shine a light inward to be able to know where and how to shine the light out, right? And the cultivation and work that all of you who are coaches who do that is really beautiful and important work. And typically, you all have a very unique way of how you help leaders with shining their light inward, right? And then ultimately what they bring out in the world. But it takes some deep, it takes being quiet and listening, right, to yourself, and really doing that deep evaluation and working with, amazing people like you. So
Nicole, one of the things that I'm seeing out in the world is a transition from what I'm going to call hierarchical traditional business systems to a much more spiritual game. Are you seeing that? Because the component pieces to creating a company that's spiritually based, with soul, with alignment, with spirit, and then again to Melissa with that story idea, that's what I'm feeling in my heart. And I'm wondering if you're seeing that out in the world of the clients you're working with.
And among the consumers, among the people, all of us, right? And I think that the pandemic excelled that too.
Absolutely. And we're not afraid to go there, right? The topic today is how to act like a unicorn, right? Would we have necessarily have the confidence to speak to that? It's also of the spirit and essence. And I have unicorns that surround me. Here's an example of one. It's on my altar, and it's a part of my manifestation. And really, what's important about that is it just spiritually it connects you. I study Buddhism, and so I have a lot of Buddhas around, but I also have a lot of unicorns around to remind me to act like a unicorn, or what is it that I need to do to help our clients get there. So yeah.
It ties into the emotional intelligence that we're all interested in now, since we've all gone through so much and so much has changed. So paying attention to what your audiences are going through, what they're thinking about, what they're facing, helps you intersect with them on your journey and bring them along and so they join your journey. So yeah, we're seeing that all over the place, Dan.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why you're not acting like, or why you wouldn't act like a unicorn. What's holding you back, right? And so, first of all, a lot of people don't even think that big. They're just trying to get to the next step, but they didn't take a moment to ask themselves, how high is up for me, right? So one thing you do want to do is ask yourself that question. And it has to do with how you like to spend your life, right? And every moment of your day, because that's what your life will be made of. So one of the things you do want to think about is, how far do I want to go, and how do I see myself participating? We also know that it's not always something that you look at that women are taught that they can do. And we know with venture funding, women only getting 2% of venture funding. It's not something that people say, hey, grow up, be an entrepreneur and get millions of dollars of funding and grow a company. So there's cultural imperatives that we have to overcome, getting there. One of the things that we also see a lot, and with the unicorns we've worked with, they tell us these stories all the time about how they persisted and they slogged away, but they didn't want anyone to know that they didn't know what they were doing, or that they didn't think they knew what they were doing. And they didn't want anybody to know about their doubts. And almost all the people that we've talked to who are unicorns and are headed for unicorns overcame that as part of their journey. They realized that they have to reach out, they have to ask for help, they have to seek the experts, and that the experts will want to work with them. There's also a fear that, oh no, when I go and talk to them, they won't want to work with me. I remember when I launched a magazine in the 80s for women business travelers, and I needed somebody who knew what they were doing in publishing, because I didn't. So I looked at there was a magazine for publishers. I read all these and I identified the key people that were quoted all the time. And then I reached out to them. There was one in particular, I reached out and I said, I want to talk to you. And he said, get lost. I'm not talking to anyone about magazines, right? But I kept hounding him. Finally, he met with me. Then he told me to get lost again. I still didn't get lost. I came back again and I kept saying, well, what about this? And what about that? And what would you make me, why would you work with me? What could I do to make that happen? Ultimately, he worked with me, he invested, he went out and raised more money for me. So bottom line, ask for help. Don't think big, think of the top people and you can get to them, right? And then confidence, which we always talk about, and it's a lot easier to talk about than it is to do or have, right? We do a lot of personal branding. And one of the things that we do in personal branding is that we look for what are the things about a person that everybody's saying about them that's evident in all of their experiences. We gather all of those things and we present them back to the person and we go, look, this is how the world is seeing you. Here's the things that they've said are really important. And invariably, when a person sees that, they go, wow, okay then. And it gives them the impetus to go out there and do things they didn't think that they could do. So with confidence, it's there for you. You have to find it. Go ahead, Nick. I know you want to add in there.
Well, just that with that, showing them that reflection of all of their skills and abilities and gifts and how the rest of the world sees them, and maybe similar leaders with similar traits, they then carry themselves in the world like the unicorn that they are. And therefore, all the things that they're aiming towards happen, right? So they start associating with people that have all those traits and leadership. So the reverberating effect of reflecting, these incredible traits in a personal brand, the person then carries and walks around the world demonstrating those qualities and associates with people that are also of that sort of level in leadership.
Can I just share what I'm hearing from you two amazing women is that, like, it seems like, to be a unicorn, you screw fear, right? Like have a childlike curiosity about what's next, what's coming around the corner, rather than, oh my God, this is scary. And it seems so nice that you two know how to put the bridle around the unicorn, you know how to walk your unicorn to water, get them to eat. It's great. It's great.
That's funny.
So
Thank you.
I can give you a positioning. So what happens for most of us is we grow up thinking we're not good enough, and we live in the binary world of good and bad and success and failure. So here's a different positioning that I think unicorns have, at least I have. I'm a scientist. And if I'm a scientist, I work in a lab. And if I work in a lab, my whole purpose is to experiment. It's not necessarily to be right every time. It's to create a hypothesis that creates an antithesis, that creates a new hypothesis. And so the underlier of that is the more mistakes I make, the smarter I get. So there's no fear of failure in that, right? There's only the joy of experimenting to see what I can birth into the world. And I think that for all of us, we need to get rid of that I'm not good enough. We are spiritual beings. We're gifted. We're geniuses. We're here to bring light in the world. That's why we came this time anyway. And so embrace it. And you know what? Thank what you believe are failures. Thank them for the lessons. And then move on. Don't get stuck.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Great. Yummy.
Another thing that kind of holds people back is they go, I don't have the money to do it, and where am I going to get the money? Who's going to give me the money? I don't know if I can prove it, that kind of stuff, right? And when you go out for money, they hit you over the head a whole bunch of times and you get so many no's, right? So you become, you kind of retract a little. And so I think what we would want to say about that is that there's a lot of ways to get money. There's not just VCs who will hit you over the head a lot, but there's private equity money. There are strategic partnerships. There's so many ways to skin the cat of trying to move forward in your business, whether it's incremental or small steps or big steps. And you will have access to funds, even if you don't have a large network. You can tap into networks that do have and work your way up to that. And you need different amounts at different points along your unicorn journey. By the time you need the big amount, you will have gotten the small amount, and you will have those money-making chops. Nicole, do you want to add anything about that side?
Well, no, not. I mean, yes, in the sense that I'm always advocating for raising in a way that is very thoughtful and strategic to your growth, right? There's nothing that's written that says that we all have to, receive receive funding, go for venture capital. It's just these different fundraising, buckets are all there uniquely to help you on your journey. And maybe you don't necessarily need them in all the ways that you thought you did. So I guess the encouragement is to not feel like you only have to raising funds or having funding to fuel growth is really what you want to look at, right? And so there's so much you can do in advance of setting yourself up to raise more funds or get capital to, really put fuel on the flame. And so, we encourage you to do that with, getting your differentiation in your story down and all the baseline things to really get you to a point where you can tell that story succinctly, because invariably you need to do that when you're going out and you're reaching for outside funding.
And just to put a pin in something that Nicole said, she said about fueling growth. Investors typically, except for your friends and family, don't want to help you get set up and figure out what you're doing, right? That's when you do your bootstrapping. When you've got, and this is the importance of the operational excellence. During this period of time when you're bootstrapping and you're growing organically, you're documenting everything. So you know that if you spend $5 on marketing, you're going to get $15 back, because you're proving out the things that will enable you to scale, right? That way, when you do go for funding, you're going like, we've got this whole thing buttoned up. Here's my operational excellence. Here's my team. Here's my vision. Here's my proof points. And if I get X amount of money, I'll be able to grow to this point. And investors respond to that. Right?
Yeah, investors, banks, government organizations, grants. I mean, you all need the things that Janine just outlined for each one of those audiences.
You have to show your traction.
That's
yes.
right.
And that you've documented your metrics. You knew what metrics to look at. You've documented them, and you know how to hit them. You know how to optimize them. And that when they give you money, it's not for all that learning. It's to like, whoa, go. Big time.
Yeah.
Right.
And unicorns all know their OKRs and KPIs. They just do. Objectives and key results, key performance indicators. We know what we need to do to reach those, right? So we're big advocates for knowing that, and then being able to articulate that if we're, seeking funding.
Question.
So we're going to go quickly because we just have a few minutes left. The last two is about questioning your leadership experience or what don't have what it takes. These are all these self-limiting beliefs that you just simply don't need to have, right? If you don't feel like, if you question your leadership experience, go learn more about it. Go take some classes, right? Go experience leadership in different ways. And that's one of the great things about women's organizations. Go head up committees. There's lots of ways to build yourself up and your own belief in yourself, because that's usually what it is. And so you probably have the skill, but you need to prove it to yourself that you do. And if you don't think that you have what it takes, then ask yourself, what does it take? Right? And break it down so you can say, wait, do I have this ability to work with people? Wait a second. Yes, I do. So take the time to remind yourself that you do have what it takes, And whatever you don't have, you can learn. And that's
Janine,
back to what Dan was saying.
Janine, all you have to do is ask 6 of your friends, what do they see?
Yeah.
How do they see you? What do they most admire about you? What are your unique skills? And you'll just be overwhelmed that people see you. And our identity is formed far more by people external to us being reflected than our own internal silliness that we talk about, right? Which is usually negative. So it's a way of doing that. And affirmation also, knowledge comes easy to me, right? People want me to succeed. I manifest things easily. And those kinds of continuities actually change your brain. You don't do it once, you do it a couple times a day. Money flows to me without difficulty. And your neurons will change and your vibration will change and you will attract what it is. Where you put your thought is where you put your energy.
Yes.
Money will never come to me is not a good energy. Money flows easily to me. People want me to succeed. My genius is all of those things will help up here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Beautiful. I think yes.
Okay.
This is important. Last
slide.
slide.
Kick off, or you want me to kick off?
No, go for it.
Okay, well, we love Guy Kawasaki a lot. And these are a couple of things that he said. One, eat like a bird, poop like an elephant. Do you know that one? So birds eat a ton, right? And elephants poop a ton. And so what he's saying is consume tremendous amounts of information. Just eat it up and just let it flow through. Don't worry about it. Don't have to retain everything. Just let it flow through. You will benefit from vast consumptions of information.
And pooping like an elephant, if I may, is also sharing your gifts with the world. It's putting out there, it's feeding growth for your business and others in your community, right? So it's also sharing your knowledge and being in service. Like we show up for these talks every month. It's really important to just put it out there, consume all this knowledge and then put it out there in the world.
So Nicole, we only have a short time, so let's just pick a couple of these. We've talked about visualization and knowing yourself, investing yourself in learning, getting comfortable with discomfort. I mean, that's a good thing to do in life in general, because as long as you're moving ahead and outside of things that you've done before, you're going to be uncomfortable. And once you're comfortable with that, you can embrace that discomfort a lot better and learn from it and get into it. We talk about your fantasy team. My daughter's in the games industry, and she wants to make a game. And I said to her, you know what? Start looking around to all your colleagues. And so when you're ready, you'll know who you want to tap into to come and help you build the next video game. Right? So it's good advice for all of us. And Nicole and I do it all the time. We're always on the prowl looking for who's going to join our team and when, right?
And or partners who will help propel your growth, right?
And I think everything else we pretty much covered. Anything else, Nicole, you want to talk about on this slide?
No, not really. Just, the importance of continuing to invest in yourself, being a lifelong learner, like the leadership, global credo says, being enchanting. And that means connecting with your audience, right? Really thinking about ways that you can be authentically connected to who your audiences are, right? What is it that they might find enchanting? That you're not afraid to wear a unicorn crown, or which I will do for the remainder of this talk, right? I mean, it's just be enchanting, be connected. Yeah.
Right.